How's everybody doing? To quote the opposite of Beyonce, who would have said we outside, we're inside, but that's for y'all's safety. Chicago weather, you never know. When we set up at 3 o'clock, we got to do what the Rain Man said, and they said it was going to rain. But we're all here together. We're here safely. We're here to celebrate our neighborhood, to celebrate who we are, and that we're coming together to bring joy, happiness, music, and culture. Give it up for yourselves. Yes. My name is Heather Ireland Robinson. I'm the executive director of the Jazz Institute of Chicago, and we have been doing this Latin Jazz Festival 15? I'm looking at Carlos. Many moons. And we're so happy to be here again. Everybody give a shout out to our artistic director, Carlos Flores. None of this could happen without him. As I say every year, if you want to know what happened on that tree leaf out there in 1962, ask Carlos. He is a historian. He's a keeper of the culture. He's an amazing visionary, and he's the reason this project is as wonderful as it is. Also shouting out our partners, not even our partners, the reason we're here, Chicago Park District. A wonderful chance for us to come inside and have a good time. I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody that one of the reasons these programs can remain free is not just our support from places like the Park District and foundations, it's because of members. People that say, I'm gonna give $30 a month, I'm gonna give $30 a year to make sure we can do free programs in our schools and in our parks. If you'd like to know more about the Jazz Institute and how you can be a part of all that we're doing, you can visit the table right out there and find out about membership and getting on our mailing list. So we've got a little bit of cool things to do before the music gets started. So I'd like to introduce you to a tireless advocate for jazz in the Midwest, both in Chicago, Milwaukee. He's a member of the Jazz Institute. I'm just saying. He helps us out a lot. So he's gonna be our MC for the night, Michael Reyes.
Thank you, Heather. Another warm round of applause for Heather Ireland Robinson, the executive director of the Chicago Jazz Institute, an important institution that helps preserve and promote jazz. And so it's really my pleasure to be here today. I want to thank our coordinator and founder of the festival, Carlos Flores, who has invited me to help out with some of the MC duties. It's just an honor, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to the 19th annual Chicago Latin Jazz Festival. And after 19 years, it's still free of charge, thanks to the Park District and the Jazz Institute. So that's why I like to say we have a money-back guarantee. You're gonna love the music, or we get your money back. But we're really honored that the music that you're about to hear tonight comes from world-class artists. They're some among the finest musicians in the world. And one of the great things that Carlos Flores, the coordinator, has always maintained is to try to highlight those talents deserving wider recognition, those unsung heroes who have been playing music locally and around the world and have not gotten the recognition they deserved. And this festival honors them. And so we're very grateful that the festival has a combination of world-class, national level artists, and our own Chicago artists are supported by this festival. And so we're really happy about that. The other thing about the festival is that we always honor there's either a theme or another unsung hero. A couple of years ago, the festival honored the great Tito Rodriguez from Puerto Rico. And we had the Victor Garcia and Papo Santiago on the big band. Before that, Jerry Gonzalez in the Fort Apache band was honored. This year is a very special tribute to one of the most important Puerto Rican band leaders from the 1940s and 50s, actually the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I had the pleasure of talking to the great Tito Puente, and I had a conversation with him and asked him, like, who are some of your heroes? And he mentioned, besides Machito, the great Machito Orchestra, he also mentioned the great Noro Morales. Noro Morales. And that is the individual that we're honoring tonight and tomorrow. The entire festival is dedicated to Noro Morales. And Noro Morales is someone who you should all investigate and learn about. And it's probable that your parents or your grandparents have heard his music. His music is still played today widely. And some of his compositions are part of the canon, the standard repertoire of Latin music. And the thing about Humberto's his brother, by the way. So Noro comes from a family of musicians from Puerto Rico. He was born in 1912 in San Juan. His father was a musician, his brothers were musicians. I mentioned Humberto Morales. Humberto was a famous drummer who was a colleague and an inspiration to Tito Puente. The family became very well known in Puerto Rico. The president of Venezuela fell in love with them, brought them there. They played for 5 years in Venezuela, and eventually they made their way to the world capital of music, New York City. And it was in New York that Noro made his mark. Noro began performing. He was colleagues with Rafael Hernandez and so a lot of the great composers and colleagues, but he was unique in that he had, he played all styles of music. He was one of the precursors of Latin jazz, you could say. He had a record called Rumba Rhapsody. He was an influence to Charlie Palmieri, Eddie Palmieri, and Noro became so successful that he signed with Columbia Records, which is now known as Sony. And back in those days, in the 1940s, he was getting paid $50,000 to $60,000 per record, and he was earning approximately $2,000 to $3,000 a week in the 1940s as a musician, which is unbelievable. If you translate that to today's dollars, it's an astronomical sum. Noro, at one time, became friends with the composer Ignacio Cervantes, one of Cuba's most famous composers. And Noro composed a song for Ignacio's daughter. The song is called Maria Cervantes. And Maria Cervantes is one of the most famous songs in the canon of Latin music. Tito Puente recorded it and won a Grammy Award for his record on Broadway. And Maria Cervantes was a showpiece. But Noro is always associated with that song, Maria Cervantes. And so there's so much more that I could say, but we want to get to the music. But we do have something very special, a very special treat for you. And that is that we have family members of Noro Morales who are here. Now, Noro passed away in 1964 at the age of 52, 53 through health complications. And so he died young, but he left a big legacy. And he also left a legacy of children. And again, we are so honored today that we have visiting with us the daughter of Noro Morales, Norina Morales. We have generations here. We have Norina. We have his granddaughter. Norina comes to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. His granddaughter, Zenaida, is here from Atlanta, Georgia. And his great-grandson, Joel Morales. And Joel is a bass player. He's a young student of the music. So the legacy continues. And so right before we get started, I just want, Norina wanted to say just a couple of quick remarks to acknowledge this wonderful occasion.
Thank you very much. My name, as he said, is Norina Morales, and this is my niece, Zenaida, and her son, Joel, my nephew. And when we heard about this event through Facebook, We traveled from New Mexico and Georgia to be here with you. We're so happy. I'm so sorry that my brothers that have all passed away are not here today. Noro Jr., Francisco, and Jimmy. So my niece, Zenny, and my nephew, Joel, were honored to have my father and her great-grandfather honored today, and that he's recognized for his musical achievements and that the music has endured all these years. So I hope that you get familiar if you're not familiar with the music, and let's hear some. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's get to the music. I'm so excited for our next guest, who hails from Chicago. Actually, he was born in Nicaragua. His family came to Chicago, and he learned piano in the church, a great source of learning. He eventually went to DePaul University to study, and he started a wonderful group here called the the Chicago Afro-Latin Jazz Ensemble, Cal J, which really set its mark here and was a major influential group in Chicago. And it put him on the map. He eventually went to New York City shortly after that, to the Manhattan School of Music, where he got an advanced degree in music. While he was in New York, he performed with all the top bands, and he became a member of the Grammy-nominated Bobby Sanabria Multiverse Big Band, of which he's currently a member of. And it's with great pleasure that I bring to the stage the wonderful Darwin Noguera and his ensemble. Let's give a warm round of applause to Darwin Noguera.
Fourth dimension, fourth dimension, fourth dimension. You could play a little bit, right? All right, here we go. Fourth dimension. Thank you. How about for Rockillera? Rockillera. Cuba, Cuba. Let's give it up for Mr. Josh Ramos on the bass. Down below. Mr. Juan Pastor on the drums from Peru. Yeah. Mr. Victor Gonzalez on the congas from Puerto Rico. And give it up for yourselves. You're here in this freaking hot weather. Yeah. That was an original composition entitled Fourth Dimension, and the previous one was called Godzilla versus King Kong, and the first one was called All the Things You Are. But we're gonna follow this piece with a special guest. Actually, he's no stranger to the Chicago scene, Mr. Flaco Navaja. You heard of him? Let's give it up for Mr. Flaco Navaja. He's a great singer. Yeah, poet. You've seen him on Netflix. All right, Flaco Navaja, here we go.
Darwin Noguera, everybody, give him a round of applause, please. And these amazing musicians, thank you so much. Que viva la comunidad de Humboldt Park. From the South Bronx to the Hollywood Hills. From Santo Domingo hasta la Ciudad de México. A través de todas las fronteras. Desde tu casa a la mía. Un abrazo social. From a distance. We don't have to be in the same room to be unidos en un sentido común. Unidos. We raise our voices and our fists for justice. Together, we celebrate our victories. Unidos, we change the world. Pero con estilo. Con orgullo y valor. Con sentimiento y dolor. Con flow, ritmo y calor. Unidos. Together. Así que, órale, que lo que es la que hubo, what's up, what's the deal, vaya. And Jose's. Well, this is for your place, even though you don't show face. See, we've been around since before the underground. King of the B-boys, you know how we used to freeze in the background. Never had to worry about how can I be down, cause I'm New Yorican, man. My people been here since you can remember, man. No one gets it the way we get it on. Yo, my people's all the true united colors of Benetton. Sheesh, I got a cousin named Chino with an Asian persuasion that'll have you fooled. Reparations from my grandmother. She's black enough to own her own 40 acres and a mule, and the cousin so white, but he still grew up listening to Super Caco. We are the best dancers for gangsters, even about our salseros. What? Hector mad better than Joe Feliciano. You crazy. We not just miran, pero, war stories are sincero. Read them in el vocero. Put your hands on a woman, she'll blow off your little huevos. No other tribal ladies look better in stilettos. What for beautiful is to see my sisters make it out the ghetto. We are so blessed. My grandmother cooks a sancocho for the soul in her Studebaker stretch, while my grandfather kills chickens in the projects. That's nothing new to me. That's why I put it down for the Capicu kings of my community. I represent Puerto Rocks, reggaeton, hip-hop. Miguel Coco won't stop with a left hook tan duro. We even got the king of the boy bands, Menudo. My people got a reputation that we party like we don't play. We'll raid your baby shower and start a party in your hallway. Can I get a vaya? To all the children of the barrios and playas, put your fists like this a little higher. Throw your politics in a bonfire. Fire, come can I get a fire? For the children of the barrios and playas. Put your fists like this a little higher. Throw your politics in a bonfire. Fire, fire, fire. Cause to be Puerto Rican is to be fly. But to be Boricua is to be so much flyer. Can I get a fire?
One more time, Flaco Navaja. Flaco Navaja. Yes, sir. You guys ready for more? All right, don't sound like it, but okay. Here we go, ready? That was Bud Powell by the late Chick Corea. We're going to continue. Yes, let's give him a hand. He's one of our founding fathers of jazz and amazing pianist, composer. We're going to continue an original composition titled Adonai.
Thank
one. All right, sing after me. Ba, 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 da, da, da. Okay, that's like a C. Ba, ba, da, 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 da. Ba, ba, da, 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 da. Okay, a little louder. Here we go. Ba, ba, da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Ba, ba, da, 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 da. Ba, ba, da, 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 da. Ba, da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Ba, 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 ba. Awa ba mi, awa ba di. 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 Awa. We're gonna continue the set. You guys having fun? All right, good, because it's really hot. I don't even know how much time we got, but we got 5 or 10? 7:45. Oh, 7:25. All right, good, good. We got time. So I'm gonna play a solo piano, a piece by the great Noro Morales, and I'm sure let's give him a hand. Wonderful pianist from New York, an influence on many of the greats, Chucho Valdez, Paquito, Tito Puente, you name it, he influenced a lot of people, and we're very grateful for his music. I'm gonna play this piece that you may know. It's entitled Maria Cervantes. Huepa. Maria Cervantes. We're gonna continue the set. I think we got like 2 more with a Hilton Ruiz. Let's get back, Rocky back here. Rocky, se fue. He went for a run. I've known Rocky since I was like, what, 15? 13? All of us, we've known all each other like for like 20 years. All right, New Arrival by Hilton Ruiz. New Arrival. Flaco, one more. Is Flaco still in the house? Vaya. Let's give it up for Mr. Flaco and everybody else on this stage. It's amazing, amazing, amazing people. I'm very honored, very honored. Vaya, we're gonna continue and we're gonna close the set with a piece entitled Obsesión. Sí.
Give them a round of applause, please. Such a pleasure and an honor to be here today.
Hace calor aquí, bro, ¿no?
Ave María, mucha calor, brother. María, qué calor. Ave María, qué calor. Ave María, qué calor. María, qué calor. Ave María, qué calor. Se encendió la rumba otra vez. ¡Qué calor, qué calor, qué calor, qué calor, qué calor, qué calor!
Flaco, Rocky, Victor, Juan Pastor, and Joshua Ramos. I'm Darwin Noguera. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's go. Ready? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Our next guests come from New York City. The leader is from Bayamón, Puerto Rico, Lomas Verdes in Bayamón, Puerto Rico. And as a kid growing up, he was a prodigy on the piano. And the Latin piano is being celebrated in full force in this festival this weekend. Every band leader that's performing is a virtuoso pianist. But Edel Gomez is somebody very, very special. By his teenage years, he was playing with all the major salsa orchestras in Puerto Rico, Bobby Valentin, Willie Rosario, you name it. And he was just the wonder kind. Everybody was going crazy over this young man. But as fate would have it, he made the move to come to the Berklee School of Music, the Berklee College of Music in Massachusetts, in Boston. And he developed his chops there. He was playing with Bill Pierce, with several of the great educators, and then made his way to New York. Edsel then was quickly picked up by the David Sanchez, saxophonist David Sanchez, by the great Jack DeJohnette, Don Byron, and he then began an association with the great Dee Dee Bridgewater, becoming her musical director and touring the world with her. And it culminated, one of the great feathers in his cap was that he was the musical director and the arranger and producer for her record, Eleonora Fagan, To Billie with Love, her tribute record to Billie Holiday, which won the 2007 Grammy Award for the best jazz vocal. So a wonderful, wonderful achievement. Mr. Gomez also produced a record called Cubist Music, which was a really, really advanced, incredible piece of music that caught the attention of the great Chick Corea. Chick heard that and he became infatuated with this music and became a big fan of Mr. Edel Gomez. And his stature has risen really to the top. He's really just a world-class international figure. The great Eddie Palmieri also has publicly stated that Edel Gomez lives in his heart and pays no rent. So a wonderful figure, a wonderful honor. We met Edsel many times. I'm from Milwaukee, and we've had the pleasure of having Edsel come to Milwaukee with the great Brian Lynch Conrad Herwig Orchestra, and they also had the great Mario Rivera in that band, and Pedrito Martinez as well. And Mario Rivera also expressed his great love for Edsel. So it's really, I can go on and on about how many accolades Edsel has had. And it's a credit to Carlos Flores, who wants to give recognition to these world-class talent. And so we're so excited that he's here. He has brought a wonderful, wonderful crew of musicians, world-class musicians with him. He will introduce them throughout the show. So without further ado, please enjoy and give a warm, warm welcome to Edel Gomez and his ensemble.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's quite an honor to be here. Please welcome the man who was Gato Barbieri's drummer for several years. He's played with everybody you can imagine. Please welcome on the drums, Diego Lopez. Please welcome Chicago's own, who you've heard with Aretha Franklin, with even Irakere. On the percussion, Jose Rendon. On the bass, whom I consider to be the premier bassist, composer, band leader in his own right, coming out of Puerto Rico, the young generations of great musicians coming out, has his own projects, making a lot of noise in social media. He's a Miel Music recording artist. His group Bambula Project is making a lot of noise and it's wonderful. Please welcome on the bass, virtuoso, Alex Apolo Ayala. Borrowed from the cast of The Lion King in New York City. Fabulous. So many things we could tell about this gentleman. Please welcome from Puerto Rico, on the vibraphone and percussions, Rolando Morales Matos. Thank you. Thank you. This is our take on Maria Cervantes. We call it Cervantes Maria. We are going to continue with an original composition. This one I wrote for my mentor, may he rest in peace, the late great Chick Corea. And this one is entitled Gypsy Chicks. All of the music we will be playing this evening will be either original or original arrangements. So some of them we haven't played yet. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much. Yeah, gracias. Thank you very much. This next piece is another original. This one entitled Panorama. It's panorama, but this is pa apostrophe Noromo, Noro Morales, Panorama. I hope you enjoy this one. It features a rhythm from Uruguay, candombe. I hope you enjoy it. you so much. I hope you enjoyed that one. We are going to do a piece by the great Antonio Carlos Jobim. I'll tell you a funny story about it. I lived in Brazil for several years. There was this tribute to Jobim at a wonderful theater in the city of São Paulo, where I was living. Can you hear it? Okay. Try to speak slower or speak in Spanish. Better? Okay. So I knew the people of the theater, so I tell them, when the music stops, when they finish, if you let me in backstage, I would love to meet Jobim. He said, sure, come over there. So I was very excited. Then everybody was there, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Milton Nascimento, you name it, Ron Carter, everybody. Fabulous concert, fabulous tribute. It's in YouTube. So, end of the concert, I go to the people in the theater and tell, please, can I go backstage and meet Jobim? Oh, certainly. I go there, and then there's a bunch of people waiting for him to come out. So I was, oh my God, I'm gonna meet Jobim. Oh my God, it's fabulous. Oh. So he comes out, Jobim comes out and keeps saying hello to everybody. And when he stood in front of me, I said, oh my God, this is Jobim. I froze, I couldn't move. So I never get to say hello. Anyway, this is his piece entitled Pasarin, and it's an arrangement I made on the rhythm of bomba from Puerto Rico. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Alex Apolo Ayala. Rolando Morales Matos. José Rendón. Diego López. This next piece I wrote after my first visit to India. I wanted to be in the Varanasi, in the city of Varanasi, which is India's holiest city. And I had a bunch of airline miles, traveling all the time. So I cashed them in and I went there on my 50th birthday. That was not too long ago. Yeah, right. Anyway, I did it. I was there in front of the Ganges River when I turned 50 to say thank you to the universe. Not that I follow any particular Indian religion, you know. I'm Puerto Rican and I'm Christian, but I enjoy the spirituality and I said, okay, I want to be there and say thank you, right? So I did it. I got me a set of tablas and started learning some of the Indian music and harmonies. And I wrote this piece, which is included in my release, Road to Udaipur, and this is Udaipur. It features Indian rhythms and harmonies mixed with Puerto Rican, of course. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. This next piece is an African classic, which I got to learn when I went to do Didi Bridgewater's project Red Earth, a Malian Journey. We went to record it in Bamako, in Mali. This shirt is from that time, and but I watched it. Anyway, this is what precedes the blues. I thought we would include it in the performance in Chicago. This is from the 12th century, and it features a story of Masani Cisse. Masani Cisse was a very powerful man in Africa who fell in love with a lady from another area of Africa, and he sent his servant to go bring the lady to him. And guess what? The servant and the lady fell in love. This is the story of Masani Cisse. When I went to Africa, they told me that everything was needed in Mali. So I talked to a friend of mine, the doctor. He gave me medical samples to bring. And I brought a bag that I had traveling all over the world, keeping a pen from each hotel, so you get a collection of pens from everywhere. So I said, I'm going to bring this collection of pens, and I'm going to give a pen to every one of the musicians that I meet, so that we can keep in touch. So I get there, they changed my name, they called me Sidiki Kouyaté. Sidiki means warrior. Kouyaté is the family of the griots that is in charge of preserving the history, the music, and the making of the instruments through oral tradition. Anyway, at the end of the recording, I give it a pen to everybody. That's when I realized that none of the greatest musicians in Africa knew how to read or write, because it's oral. Anyway, this is Masani Cisse, and we are going to make it together with an original composition that I just entitled Bolero es Bolero. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. José Rendón en la conga, de conga, José Rendón. Chéquere, conga, percussion, José Rendón. Diego López on the drums. La batería, Diego López. Alex Apolo Ayala from Puerto Rico on the bass. Alex Apolo Ayala. Rolando Morales Matos on the vibraphones, percussion. Thank you very much for having us here. My name is Edel Gomez. Thank you. We're very happy and honored to take part in this festival. Thank you to Carlos Flores, who has been making this for several years. We tried and now finally happened. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Michael Reyes, thank you for the support for years. Thank you, it means a lot. Thank you, Chicago. We love you. Thank you. God bless you all very much.
Edsel Gomez, ladies and gentlemen, Edsel Gomez. A round of applause. Muchas gracias.